Tan Safi was born in Gadigal country to parents who fled Lebanon after surviving the Israeli invasions in the 70s and 80s. They are a documentary filmmaker who has worked with NGOs fighting against human rights abuses, child trafficking, sex slavery, deaths in custody, and more. They have lived in Palestinian and Syrian refugee camps in Lebanon to highlight people and movements who are doing the most with almost no resources. Tan joined the Freedom Flotilla coalition for the 2024 Break the Siege mission to Gaza and was on Handala in Rotterdam and Cork. They were ready to board the Conscience hours before it was bombed in European waters and supported the Medline team on the ground in 2025. Tan has two favourite things to say: that everybody is someone else's entire universe, and that we all need more revolutionary imagination. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tan. We live on Indigenous stolen land as beneficiaries of settlement, but we're also victim survivors of Western empire and imperialism. So we like to start each episode, not just with your origin story, your asl, your roots, but acknowledging whose land you live, love, protest and fight on.
It's funny, I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I'm so privileged, so lucky to be able to live on and benefit from Gadigal country. But we're also taught from a very young age to be very thankful in this country, to be, we're the lucky ones. It's a lucky country. And actually, my family were forced here. Yeah. And what a world that, we're so grateful that a place would take us in while it disseminates an Indigenous population at the same time. Yeah. But yes, I'm very, very at the... As someone who has been privileged enough to work with a lot of Indigenous communities around the colony, I feel very grateful that I've been welcomed into those spaces at the same time. Yeah.
It's also like this bittersweet irony that the British are the ones who basically are the cause of the loss of our lands and also the cause of dispossession here. And so I think that binds us in that struggle for mutual liberation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell us about your origin story as well, so your family, your roots, and how that sort of links up to the fact that you're here now.
I mean, like most of us, I'm a bit of a meze plate, I like to say. So my great-grandfather is from Nablus, Palestine, and my dad's mum is from Syria. And on my mum's side, they're Lebanese Syrian. But they met in Lebanon. They had my brothers during the Israeli invasions, as you mentioned. There was this moment, they were living in Shweifet, and it was in the 80s. And an Israeli missile was fired toward their home, but it actually lodged in the ceiling and it never exploded. So my brothers, my mum, dad, and grandparents were in that house. And they're just miracles to me. That's a story that I learned much later in life. Like, again, many of us diaspora kids, our parents don't talk to us about their traumas. But yeah, that was kind of the final straw for them, and they were able to come here.
My teta lives in Shweifet, actually. So
Really?
how did we not make that connection sooner? It's till, to this day. So, Allah yahmiya. Well, your family's story, as you've just outlined, is intertwined with Lebanon's history of civil war and displacement. And now your own work has taken you to refugee camps and to front lines of solidarity missions. How have those inherited histories that we carry shaped not only your political convictions, but also the way in which you choose to tell stories through film?
The first film that I ever made, it was after living in Tripoli in Lebanon, and a civil war broke out. So it was my first experience with bombing and shelling, and it was a few days into me going to my teta's house in Abu Samra. While the war was happening, we were under curfew, and I started drawing what I was seeing. And I was about 20, 21. And when I eventually managed to escape, because that's what I had to do to get out, I turned it into a short film. And that short film, through all the hand drawings, won a United Nations award, and I was sent to New York, and I realized people actually care, and people actually want to tell these stories. I'm sorry, people actually want to hear these stories. But at the same time, I was really quite exhausted by the fact that our stories were always surrounded by grief and destruction and survival. So I was trying to find that balance, I think, from a young age of, you know, we exist, we're human, this is very much a part of us, but it's not all of us. Like many people who are survivors of any kind of trauma. I personally, I don't identify just with that. I am also many other things, and we have many other stories to tell. We fall in love, you know, we're funny. We have other things outside of war that we can talk about. So stepping into social media kind of allowed for that exploration and balance of some entertainment, some really silliness, some like fun, but also always coming back to core issues as well. And I think when I worked for BuzzFeed in Sydney, it was the first time a lot of people saw an Arab person like that on such a huge platform and just being human, you know, and it was very important to people. I didn't realize how big it was at the time, but that was the feedback I got from people in the public. And then I utilized their platform to tell bigger stories that were more impactful, because that was always the core of me. I wanted to utilize spaces to get bigger, more impactful messages out there, which I was able to do.
And to not have that be mediated
Yeah.
through someone else, by someone else, I imagine would have been really powerful as a medium to have that sort of sovereignty, if you will, over it. Perhaps also why we started this podcast.
Yeah. I like that idea, though, that you weren't doing it to humanize, because there was a whole impulse, I know, like me, growing up post 9/11, where we produced content and wrote because we were so dehumanized, so we felt that we had to correct the record. So we had to show, hey, we're not terrorists, we're not scary, we're not threatening. And that in itself was very problematic, but very much a sign of the kind of environment that we were growing up in, which is that you defined yourself as not. But I love the idea that you did it because it was about self-determination, I think, and about just telling the full spectrum of what it means to be an Arab. I think that's like remarkably mature for someone to start their storytelling career that way. I had to learn it the hard way.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were all told to be apologetic, upright citizens 24/7, for sure. And I think a lot of us still harbour that awareness, and we're so afraid to step out the line ever so slightly. But I was always just a little bit rebellious, I think.
Yeah.
And social media as a platform is not, in an ideal world, it's not where I would focus. You know, I'm a filmmaker and I love documentaries, but I understand that it's a tool that we have at our disposal.
Yeah.
So that's why I use it, despite all the ugliness. You know, you can use social media to break someone or something, or you can use it to build, and that's what we need.
Yeah.
To just constantly build community and focus.
Yeah.
Focus people. Always include a call to action, not just build awareness, because you can educate someone, but then what do they do with all of that information? Often at times they're left really overwhelmed or depressed, and they don't know what to do with those feelings.
So moving them into action in a way and using that as a tool. But you prefer long form.
Yeah.
Long form film, that is your love, I guess.
It's so hard to condense everything into 2 or 4 minutes. It's impossible.
We know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like that's the demand, but we have to resist it. There is the space for longer contemplation, and
For sure.
Definitely.
and the material also, you need to honour it as well.
It feels disrespectful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. It feels dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, you can, if you have people that you can trust in those positions, then you can use it to build some kind of movement and some kind of action going forward. And that's what we did. You know, when I first joined the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, their social media platform on Instagram, was a couple of thousand. And I joined and I created a video and it went bananas.
Yeah.
And it grew by something like 70 or 80,000 in a week. And people were hearing about the flotilla for the first time. Yeah. And it wasn't my proudest work, but it did something. you know, and you can't quantify it. It's not likes and followers.
Yes.
It's not everything, but it moved people and it got us to where we are now, 100%.
It's an access point. And not to flex, but I might have been one of the OG followers from a very long time ago. So
I'll
proud.
give you an autograph.
Pretend.
So you've lived and worked in Palestinian and Syrian refugee camps, and more recently on the Freedom Flotilla, and you've seen communities trying to, you know, organise themselves with almost no resources, but they've had just this incredible resilience. So what's it been like for you to witness that? And can you tell us not just about like the resources, the material resources we'd often think about, but when you're in that kind of a setting, like the people resources, the emotional resources, how much does it take to have that kind of resistance and show up?
Okay, I think the work I've done in Lebanon and the FFC are very different in terms of the people. Living and working in Syrian and Palestinian camps across Lebanon, it was amazing to meet those who were displaced as well as local Lebanese people doing absolutely everything they could 24/7 with just nothing, no resources, no awareness, no social media. I think it's the fact almost that they're not afforded that luxury. They have to. There's no choice. You have to survive and you have to help people, or you should. And it's very much a part of our culture to do that, and for a lot of us culturally and religiously. And I had never seen anything like that in this colony where we have all the resources in the world, and also, I mean, coming back to the diaspora, a huge diaspora who have everything they've ever wanted but don't lift a finger for anyone else. Yeah. It shattered me. That was back in 2019. But also, I saw, okay, like, beauty exists. It's hard to remember that sometimes. But yeah, volunteering with the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, it's a much more international volunteer base. They're from countries all over the world. Like the Break the Siege mission in Turkey, we had people from over 45 countries. And it's mostly people who come from privilege because, you know, passports. They have the income to be able to travel to a destination and do this kind of work. But
can you give some context about Break the Siege, just for those who aren't familiar with that and why it was launched?
Yeah. So last year, that's when I first joined FFC in March. The Break the Siege mission, it was supposed to launch from Istanbul in Turkey with 5,500 tons of humanitarian aid and about 800, 900 volunteers on 3 ships. And I went there very, very much in a state of despair, and it was kind of like the thing that saved me. I think meeting all of these people from all over the world who they had just as much to lose as you or I or anyone in this room or outside. Like, they're human. They have siblings and parents and children and jobs and loved ones. But they were all willing to give everything to feed Palestinians in Gaza. And this is over 1.5 years ago. Yeah. But yeah, those ships were deflagged. Israel and US pressured Guinea-Bissau to deflag the boats, which means they can't sail because every ship needs a flag legally, and FFC follows international law, unlike the terrorist state of Israel. And so we couldn't go. But again, yes, it takes like a certain amount of privilege to be in those spaces, but it really took in what I saw. I went with the mentality of like, you're not here to make friends, Tan, just focus. And I fell in love with everyone, just constant love. Like it was overwhelming how much I loved because they were here because they were human and there was a readiness for everything and anything, which is really hard.
A whole episode on that, but isn't that partly the point? Would you say?
100%.
Relationships and the connection and the community building and the solidarity. And I mean, even just going back to the camps, I think that would be what you saw is rooted in exactly that, is rooted in love, is rooted in care in our culture and communities of care. And I think it's rooted in the fact that you're forced to innovate when you have very little else materially.
Yeah. And this world makes us feel so isolated in
Yes.
our insanity and our outrage and our grief and heartbreak. So when you're in a room with people who feel that too, you don't have to say anything, like how I feel with you both. And again, they're just willing to actually put everything on the line. There's no language for this, I don't think, actually, yet. Maybe after these flotillas, but it's the most human I've ever felt.
I heard this interview with Ahad Tamimi today, where she was saying that the most dangerous thing that Israel does is to colonize the mind.
Yes.
And I think it's that the colonization that's happening globally is to make us think that we have no power, that we are atomized, that we can forget that another world is possible. So when you meet people who have an imagination to think, actually, we can build an alternative way of living, that is just so powerful and infectious.
When I first heard about the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, it was through my cousin, Rahab, and I remember thinking, that's never going to happen, come on. And I just sat with it for a second and I thought, well, what else? What else am I doing? Because at that point, it was just protesting every Sunday. And personally, I don't think that's enough.
Yeah.
I was sick with how outraged and disgusted I was feeling with the violence. And again, this is a year and a half ago. And I remember the fact, and I reiterate this all the time, we live in a society that tells us from the very beginning, from when we're really young, to never help that person. It might put you in danger.
Yeah.
You know, to put the mask on first before you put it on someone else. That you're small, that you should stand in line, that you should be polite, it's this apologetic, constant reminder that if you do something slightly deviating from the norm, that you risk something, right? That's on purpose.
Yeah.
That's so that we remain repressed, subdued, scared. And we need to fight against that. While we're fighting against the system, this is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why people are so enamored and shocked when they hear that someone doesn't agree with that and actually does something the total opposite. It shouldn't be that way, that it's such a big deal. It shouldn't.
You reminded me, sorry, Sarah, of this article that I read by this philosopher, Femi Taiwao, Why Protests Should Be a Promise, which is that when we protest, it should be a promise to extend the protest to sustained, like, collective withholding, direct action, boycotts. It should be the start. It should be the shouldn't be the floor. It should be the ceiling kind of logic. And then Kwame Ture, about the amazing African American civil rights leader, who also spoke about the difference between mobilizing and organizing. And people who mobilize like for reform, whereas organizers mobilize for revolutionary change against systems.
Yes.
And I think that's what's so powerful about something like the Freedom Flotilla. You're not just there, like, you're not just doing the bare minimum. You're actually attacking the system that sustains all of this injustice.
Yeah, and like you were alluding to, it takes that revolutionary imagination. You have to think outside of the confines of what they tell you to. Them allowing us to walk down a street every so often, and even the Harbour Bridge, like that fire was so huge, but at no point will I ever thank them for that. Yeah. This is not their land. They don't get to tell people where they get to protest a genocide that they're helping create and maintain.
That's right.
So we need to be revolutionary in our imagination to say, okay, what else can I do? And become our own heroes, It's like we all want someone to descend and to tell us exactly what to do or to do it for us. But we need to see that it's within all of us.
Yeah, I love that. I think It's so easy to shirk that responsibility and to offload it onto the activists. The activists will do it. I'm not an activist. You know, they'll save us. But actually, instead of waiting for the revolutionary activists and obviously, you know, the people that have led us to this moment, the Malcolms and the Angelas, I think we need to realize that we're it for each other, and we all need to be activists, and that is a state of being, that is a way of life. And yes, it starts with the imagination. I often say it's our playground. It's the playground of the oppressed, and it's a starting point.
I like that, playground of the oppressed.
Yes, I really hope that it was me who came up with it, and I'm not just forgetting that I read it somewhere. But in any case, I want to go back to the Medline. So you're on the Medline. Can you tell us quickly about the significance of the name?
So I was supporting the Medline from the ground as part of the media team, and the boat was named after Gaza's first fisherwoman. And at first we wanted to, because the boat was purchased a while before it actually sailed to Gaza. And to be honest, we were scared that talking about her name would put her in danger, of course, because they target people. She's in Gaza, so they target people in Gaza for far less. But we reached out to her, and she was very, very excited and very honoured, and we had a beautiful conversation with her. She's incredible. There's actually a documentary about her as well. So her dad was a fisherman, and she learned from him. And of course, the FFC's goal is to break Israel's illegal siege and create a sea corridor to Gaza, which we are legally entitled to do. So a massively in honour of her work, and as a feminist and as a staunch, she's a pioneer. She's incredible. She has a bunch of children, and yeah, we're worried for her, of course, every waking second of every day. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful human being.
I love that symbolism. In light of your recent detention and the psychological brutality that you described, that you experienced at the hands of the Israeli Zionist military, how do you navigate the tension between the personal risks of activism like this, of frontline activism, as well as the imperative to stand in solidarity in the way that we've been describing?
You might want to also explain like what happened, because maybe our listeners don't know that you were actually arrested, but go in as detail that you're comfortable with.
And just gently, if you need to.
So I was recently on the Handala, which sailed from Gallipoli, Sicily which recently sailed from Gallipoli in Italy toward Gaza, and we were illegally intercepted by the Israeli military around 55 nautical miles away from the shore. Medline was intercepted illegally at 113 nautical miles, so we were very close. Yeah. Actually, we started to really think that they would let us in, and we were all very excited. But we were surrounded by drones every night, and in the lead up to that interception, there was an Israeli heron circling us all day. And of course, getting closer, we were always trying to work out how far they were. So much happened in between. When they came, they surrounded us with military zodiacs, and we all sung Bella Ciao, put our life vests on, drowned out what they were saying over the megaphone, no idea, and then boarded the boat. And there were about 35 of them in the beginning, all, of course, guns, decked out, GoPros, DSLRs, and they were trying to create this performance similarly to what they did with the Medline, where they distributed sandwiches and water.
Can I ask you, how young are they? Like, what do these soldiers look like? Who are they?
This is an elite squad.
Okay.
They're like a special unit, 13. So these people are very different to the soldiers ordinarily that would fight in Gaza. They're actually worse.
Yeah.
They're trained assassins. they were a mix of ages. I tried to look at all of them in the eyes and just kind of analyze them. Mix of genders. They didn't look anyone the same kind of person, but they all had this very theatrical performance where they were handing us water and sandwiches, and I said, "How dare you give us any? I'm not touching anything that you touch. You're starving babies to death. We're not going to be a part of your propaganda movie." And they were trying really hard to pressure Vigdis, who was the older woman with our 70-year-old Norwegian legend. She's so staunch. She had no fear. And no one did, actually. Like, genuinely, none of us were afraid when they came. They were every stereotype you imagine in terms of the script, in terms of... it's exactly what you would imagine. Violent, but also trying their best to bite their tongue and trying their best to stay, while the cameras were rolling, appear human. Yeah, so they were trying to give Vigdis this food and water repeatedly, and I just told them to respect their elders and no means no, and listen to her when she says no, and they backed away. But then the camera stopped. And it was strange because everyone started passing out, and I'm still trying to make sense of this, to be honest, because we were all on the deck in very uncomfortable positions, and the waves were coming onto us and wetting people, but one by one everyone just went to sleep. And I remember thinking, this is not normal. And I was sitting with Robert Martin, actually, and I started to feel like I just couldn't stay awake, and I was fighting against this. And if you know me, I'm the most hypervigilant guard dog imaginable. Like, I saw these people, and they are as my family, and I wanted to make sure nothing happened to them. But I couldn't fight this feeling, and I passed out as well.
So there was some kind of biological warfare used against you, some kind of substance.
I don't know. I mean, prior to the interception, there was a fog that surrounded us that we could see. Yeah.
It's like a movie.
Yeah. I mean, isn't this the whole point, though? It's part of sustaining this colonial spectacle, everything that you've described so far. It's theater, as you said.
It was. And just before I fell asleep, they started to show their true colours. So they started saying things like, is this your first time to Israel? We've just come from Gaza. They started boasting about having just killed people there. And, you know, the most boring things like, what's Palestine? And I was just like, are you still doing that?
Uninspired.
Uninspired. But yeah, they became extremely aggressive in the morning when we were at Ashdod port. And that's when they pinned my comrade Chris Smalls down to the floor. As soon as they got us off the boat, one by one.
You had so you'd fallen asleep, and then you woke up and you found yourself in port?
No, not yet.
Okay.
No, sorry. I'd fallen asleep, and I kept coming to a little bit, and I saw that they were taking photos of all of us. And I saw even at one point they had this Hessian bag that they kept bringing off and on to Handala. Like a Zodiac would come and they would bring the bag, and it had heavy metal objects in it. So I assumed they were trying to plant weapons around the boat, because that's generally what they've done to previous flotillas, to make them look violent. And I also saw them, because I could see from above, they were in our bedrooms planting things. And I got reprimanded for looking down there. But yeah, when I properly woke up, it was the daylight was coming. It was 12 hours between the illegal interception and Ashdod port. And yeah, called us off one by one. They had a huge paparazzi crew, but they were all police or militants. And after they pinned Chris down,
And Chris was the only African American
Yes.
black man.
Yeah, it was like 7 or 8 men just grabbed him. They put the rest of us in a room, and I said, "Where's Chris?" And that's when the psychological games kicked off hard, because this one guy who seemed to be in charge would say things like, "You'll never see him again. You don't have a right to ask." And I said, "I have a right to a lawyer. You've human trafficked me, so at least give me that." And yeah, they became more and more aggressive with each of us. And at one point I had asked again to see Chris, and they just came in and picked me up by my arms and threw me out of the room into a smaller room, told me to take off all my clothes. And I was shocked a little bit because, I just remember it was like such a big space. I just looked at one of them like, really? Like here? And they're like, yes.
Male guards?
Both.
Soldiers?
And so I had to, and then put my clothes back on, went through all my things, and it was just this game of like putting me in one room and another, and speaking to me in Hebrew, laughing at my passport, taking me to someone else, and I just never knew what was happening. It was really odd, but eventually they put me into like an interrogation room where 3 men, one played good cop and the other 2 were the bad cops. This, again, so transparent, but they were like, "Are you aware that you entered Israel illegally?" And I said, "I'm aware that you human trafficked me into a part of Palestine I never wanted to come to, and that the interception of the boat was illegal." And they threatened me then with prison. They said, "Look, here are these documents that you can sign saying that you entered illegally, and if you don't, you'll be in prison for a really long time." And I just said, "Well, that's up to you guys." And again, pushed around another room. They asked if I had a lawyer, and I had written a lawyer's number on a piece of tape on a sock. I put it inside my sock, like on the foot, right? So when they strip searched me, they didn't see the masking tape, and that was all I cared about, because she was my only like source of hope. This lawyer that I'd never met. They didn't see it, thank God. So when they asked if I had a lawyer, I reached into my shoe and I said yes, yes, yes. And I called her, and she was there. The Handala lawyers from the West, absolutely incredible. Yeah, sorry, am I talking too much? So much happened.
You can feel free to share as much or as little as you want. And I have more questions. They didn't explain to you what you were doing, what the process was, how long you'd be there, what your choices were. They're speaking a different language. So all these things that we actually know are pretty trademark, obviously, for so-called Israeli authorities. I also, what happened to your stuff? I mean, I know that that's not the priority, but I'm just interested in the fact that they took you off the boat. What happened to the boat at that point? What happened to your things? Was there any information?
They took all the bags that were on deck, and one of them was mine, and it had a lot of things inside of that, and they put that on a Zodiac and left, and I never saw that bag again. When we were at Ashdod port, they allowed us to go and get our things. I went to get my bag, and it was covered in a white substance. I don't know what it was. And then I had to take it with me as they shoved me around into the different rooms. And after the interrogation, they gave me to a group of these balaclava-donning officers. They were the most violent. And they went through, there were maybe 8 of them going through my things and just chucking out everything, anything Palestine-related, keffiyeh, anything with Arabic writing on it, T-shirts, jewellery. It's just gone. It's just gone. When I finally got my bag at the very end, though, even more stuff was gone. I just had like a pair of tracksuit pants and a T-shirt, basically, and other people's things. They moved our things around, gave us other people's things.
it really tells you something, that they know that the world's attention is on them. They know that the world knows that they've captured you all, and they still treat you so appallingly because the impunity is so assured.
Yeah.
Like the entitlement.
That was the biggest thing, is that they actually didn't care that we had people with platforms, we had passports of privilege, we were from 10 different countries. There was not an iota of care in their eyes. And we know, and we say this a million times, but it is such a tiny, tiny fraction of what they wanted to do to us. I just sensed that the whole time. Like, they were ropeable. I've never felt so hated in my life in the way that they were looking at us, treating us. And I was definitely treated differently to the other white women that were with me, 100%.
You were the only Arab?
Yeah.
And the only Palestinian, presumably.
And Chris, the only black man.
Yes.
Yeah.
And both of you received the worst treatment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, it makes you wonder what they do to the thousands of Palestinian hostages that they've held, the Palestinians they've incarcerated in their systems, their dungeons, who don't obviously have, as you say, these passports of privilege or any sort of form of communication, public, or any sort of shield, if we can call it that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, in the prison itself, that was another level of brutality there.
You were there for 4 days?
Yeah. But the first morning, I woke to a man howling in agony.
You don't forget. Sounds like that.
You did an ABC interview the morning of the protest across the Harbour Bridge.
Yeah.
And it still infuriates me, because you sat there and you spoke about this and you gave them your lived experience, your direct testimony, and the presenter kept saying, well, we've put that to the IDF and we're waiting on confirmation. And it just, it just makes you, we're out, like Amy McQuire, Indigenous journalist, amazing, talks about the black witness as sovereign, and they can't even bear to give you the credibility to speak about something that actually happened to you without having the alibi of your oppressor, of the perpetrator. And there's a gender dimension to that as well. Like we were talking about that before, how survivors are never believed. They're always discredited. It just shows you those like multiple layers of the oppression. Yes. But I just found that to be one of the most violent interviews. I was just swearing at the screen that you were talking about all of this, and he had to keep interjecting.
Yeah. I expect no less from the ABC, to be honest. And it's interesting, though, because as much as we know, I also feel like I totally minimized what happened, and I still am. It's sexual humiliation. Like they made me take my clothes off multiple times. They threw me against the walls. They stepped on my feet. They swore at me. All these things. It's in any other context, if a group of people were stolen and put somewhere that they didn't want to be, we'd be up in arms about that, right? Like it would be considered human trafficking. It would be considered kidnapping. And we're not even allowed to say those words. Mainstream media here would never call it that. It's all alleged. It's all, proclaims. And it impacts you, even though I should say me, even though I feel like I'm smarter than that. I was and still am really minimizing how brutal they were.
I reckon it feeds into this idea that, like, see what you made me do. That kind of like, well, you asked for it.
Sure.
How dare
Just
you
thinking
fight
that.
back?
Victim blaming.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there is that element, well, you know what they're like. Why would you go into that? Because they don't understand, like, they don't have the imagination to think that, you're not going to accept that kind of oppression. You will fight back.
Yeah.
It's abuse or tactics, though, right? We know that this is classic abuse, and I think we have been saying as Palestinians as well, and as advocates, that the state violence is rooted in and intimately linked to gender-based violence. We just haven't seen a lot of that, the sector, if we can call it that, catch up or say that as well, or recognize it. You know, perhaps it's uncomfortable, but you've spoken to it. You've spoken to exactly that.
It was interesting though, you know, a lot of the other comrades that I was with in the prison, they were really shocked to see the female officers being as brutal. I mean, I wasn't surprised by that at all, but it shocked them that there was no like connection, you know. And again, despite all that we know and despite all that we've seen, I think because we are so human, we cannot understand how someone cannot be. It's like trying to watch a serial killer documentary, and you're like, how is someone capable of that, of doing that to those people? And this is a whole state doing it to millions of people. So our brains and hearts can't compute, and we look for any kind of connection, whether it's that we're the same gender or, you know. And there's nothing.
It's psyche in a system.
Yeah, we were cockroaches. We were dirt. We were nothing to them.
That's really profound. It is like you just look for any slight bit of humanity.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to believe that people can be that evil.
You don't. I don't. I still have this childlike hope in me that people aren't that bad, but that evil exists, and I've seen it, and they're monsters. There's nothing left there.
Irredeemable.
It exists and it's enabled, so it builds and builds, and we just have to hope that it implodes on them.
It will.
Yeah.
These things always do.
Yeah. Well, the people are fighting, and it's a global uprising of collective energy now, where people are finally seeing that this is what they need.
So I'm going to pivot to your documentary filmmaking, which is about witnessing and amplifying stories. But you are so deeply embedded and respectful of the communities you film. So just, you know, we're curious to know how you ensure that that storytelling is used like for liberation rather than voyeurism. And, you know, passive surveillance, and what responsibilities come with that? How do you negotiate all of that?
When it comes to the past couple of years, creating short documentaries for the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, I always make sure to include some kind of guidance so that people are learning but also directed. Because, again, I picked up on this so long ago. People say, I wish I could do something. Well, how do I join? What do I do? If only there was a way. And there are. So call to actions are very, very important. For me, financial disruption is massive, to direct people to always endorse and actively live BDS. It's something I've been saying for decades, but, you know, here we are. And again, there's direct actions like, yes, the FFC. There's also this upcoming global Samud flotilla. There's also going and disrupting weapon manufacturers. And it's when people look at the FFC and they call it heroic or courageous, I feel so uncomfortable with terminology like that, because it's actually good for you to do this. It is good for you to feel human again and to be connected with humans who care. And we all need to be reminded of that we are all insane right now with all sorts of things, again, that language hasn't even developed the words for yet. Yeah. And direct action, in my experience, is the only thing that provides some breath to the feelings of being disassociative 24/7, of being in a state of despair or survival 24/7. It allows focus, and you know that you're contributing to something. And so it's not selfless. It's always for Palestine, but it's for you and for the greater world, because Zionism does not just affect Palestine either. Yeah. It's got its paws in so many countries, so many regions of the world. So yeah, it's a balance of, again, education, but also bringing people together and feeling more connected, because this world intentionally separates us, disconnects us from one another.
One would argue that direct action isn't just an antidote, as you're saying, but also an obligation. It's something that we have a duty to do to fulfill. That is our commitment, and that requires, showing up and having the discipline to continue to do that.
And we're living in the belly of empire. Like, we're living in the engine. Like, I always think about the fact that people are donating so much money to baby formula and food, and it's sitting at the border, which tells you donations are one thing, but if you can't affect the policy, where the decisions are made, that's where the real action lies. Didn't you mention this beautiful quote by Dr. Samah about the margin of, that we have a wider margin? Can you remember that?
Yes, that we have wider margins of safety to be able to take action. So everyone has, and it is incumbent upon everyone in their capacity to try and do something, but Palestinians in Palestine, as opposed to Palestinians in diaspora, we have more wider margins of safety to be able to engage in this sort of direct action. So it is that safety, but it's also that, as you say, we are in the corridors or in belly of empire. Yeah. So both of those things make us well positioned, and we should be out there affecting that change and to every way we can.
Genocide unprofitable,
exactly,
because it's the only way it's going to stop.
100%.
It's not a moral appeal. We know that now. It
to
comes
our oppressors.
down. Exactly. And we do have the capacity to do that at the bare minimum with boycotts.
And I mean, this is a tricky space to enter, but we also need allies. We also need, say with the flotillas, Arab and Palestinian folk are always at much higher risk of being hurt or killed. They killed 10 of our comrades in 2010. Israel went on the Mavi Marmara and point blank killed 9 volunteers, and 1 died later because they were Turkish and Muslim. Okay? So we need allies as well, because there is a safety. Do you think Medline would be as big as it was if Greta wasn't on it? Absolutely not. We know that, but we also need to balance allyship with fighting saviorism, know, and that's something that the FFC avoids a lot of the time, but it's not. It's not always clean, It's messy. Collectives are hard.
Thing that at the end of the episode, we need a whole episode.
We do. I mean, let's leave it as there are ethics and responsibilities of to being an ally, because I definitely want to dig into that. We're gonna need another hour, but I think it's really worth mentioning, because we are taking part, or we're discussing direct action, and we're doing so on stolen land, and we know that First Nations communities have a long history in the struggle of, being of organizing all sorts of direct action, and that's something that I really think we need to be doing better. So that us being allies in this case, and maybe linking up how we do that direct action, particularly here.
I would say, if I can, I think direct action is very innate in us, and it calls to something that we are all a part of. It's the same way, like it takes a village to raise a child. It's the same kind of thing where when all humans want to belong to something and need to feel safe, and when we are fighting with each other, you feel that love and that sense of humanity on a totally profound level.
And it's not in our nature to be bystanders.
Yeah, it's not.
That's so interesting.
Because I was thinking, like if you see a house burning down, like most people's instinct will, and you see children in there burning, most people's instinct would be to go and put it out, not release a press statement saying fires are really bad. But and we have grave concerns as they watch. I think that is, like what you said, the instinct is there, but racial capitalism has made us think that we don't have the power to put out that fire, and that our words are enough.
Psyche.
Doesn't every single religion tell us to be in service of others?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the first thing addicts get taught in recovery, to be in service. It's good for you. It helps you recover. Yeah. That's literally the first thing that they're taught.
Yeah.
This is what we need as humans, and every Indigenous culture has taught us that you care for the land, you care for the environment, and you care for the people. And that's what we don't have when we're living in this capitalist society. We might actually watch that house burn. We might actually do that.
So we're programmed now, and that is by design. I mean, that speaks to what you've been saying this whole time, to resist that urge to adjust to a society that is, constructed in a way where injustice is that is the everyday, is the status quo.
Yeah.
Yes.
and harm, injustice, harm, and sort of carceral, viewpoints.
Yes.
Tan, we've got a sassy little segment for you now.
Okay.
Things that we are no longer apologizing for. So I would like to ask you, what is something that you are no longer apologizing for as a feminist, as an Arab, as someone speaking on Palestine?
The word that comes to mind is my insanity, because that's how I feel. And I used to feel ashamed of it and scared, but how can I not be? And if you're not insane, I'm scared of you. I'm terrified of you. So that's big for me.
Not apologizing for that mindset. Absolutely.
Words we live by. Is there a quote or poem or piece of writing that's been anchoring you lately, especially in this time?
Oh, yeah, I should have prepared for that one.
Bella Ciao. Sounded like it anchored you.
Oh, gosh. There was one day in Gallipoli where an Italian local came and started singing from her car, the roof of her lungs. She was singing Bella Ciao, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. She was hysterical at the same time, crying, but so strong and fighting through. That's why we chose to sing Bella Ciao when the IOF came, in respect for our comrades in Italy. They really supported us. There's nothing specific. It's just, I think I try to remember that every single fight that we've ever won has taken sacrifice, and that it's not extraordinary. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. And so we all need to sacrifice more.
Beautiful. If you could send our listeners a feminist care package to get through these times, what would be in it, aside from a sock with a lawyer's number on it?
Gosh, a care package. I'm probably the worst person to ask about care, to be honest. In terms of self-care, I don't even know what that looks like anymore.
A card that says abolish Israel. Sorry, should not be answering this segment.
No, please, continue.
I will send you a care package and tell you the little postcard that says abolish Israel.
I saw two people in Elizabeth's bookstore in Newtown fighting over your book yesterday. Literally,
Wow.
like a beautiful fight where they were like, do you want that? No, you buy it. Two women, of course. No, please, you take it. And they went on for like 10 minutes, and it was gorgeous. So I would send them your
book
books.
as a cat. Wow.
Like, what a better
Thank you.
moment to see how important words are and connection is, and literature and art and connecting people, that these two women just couldn't decide who gets the gift of your words.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Two Pals in a Pod. We're really so immensely privileged to have you, and really grateful for your time to be able to talk to us, especially in the immediate aftermath of everything that you've just experienced. But I feel somehow, despite this week of hell, feel very buoyed by our conversation, our connection, and your presence. I know it's really challenging, but as you say, these are the things that we get to hold on to that keep us going.
Yeah, we're lucky we have each other.
Yeah, this is our self-care.
Yeah, you're
being
right.
with each other.
And direct action, actually. That's
Yeah.
self-care. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.